With me today is Andrew Sullivan. He is a recovering addict. As he says, there is no such thing as a reformed addict. You stay an addict for life. Once an addict, always an addict. Andrew, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Ilse. Thank you.
Explain it a little bit more. Why do you insist on being called a recovering addict?
Well, that's what works for me, Ilse. I mean, there's so many different ways that people approach their recovery from addiction or any kind of mental health disorder. For me, it works to know, and it offers me some vigilance to know that every day that I wake up, the way that my mind works, the way that my thinking goes, and my actions that could follow that can very often be very addictive. So I've got to safeguard against that by going through certain rituals every day in my recovery process, which just for today, I can't touch, well, probably touch wood there, is just over 3 years now. And it's working for me. So, but there are people that will spend time in recovery and say that they're recovered, and fair play to them, that's great. And if that's the way that they want to approach it, it's very individual. But for me, and what I've been taught by far more intelligent people than myself, that I will be an addict for the rest of my life. And that's okay with me today.
You wrote a book, A Year Without Substance.
That's right. Yeah.
And you've got a blog, A Journey Without Substance. And these things are sort of chronicling your experience, your day-to-day experience, your abuse of time, everything. You started as a young boy, experimenting with alcohol and drugs.
Yeah, 13 was when I suppose a red flag should have gone up at that age, because I...
Why? How did you get into it?
Well, just as kids do, at 13 years old, I've got kids myself these days, and to think that I had a drink at 13 when they're around about that age now seems insane. But at the time, I was with a few friends in the UK, is where I'm from, and parents were out for the night, and we went in as a sort of a bet to go into their liquor cabinet. They took a couple of sips of gin, but I didn't. I insisted on being the big boy, as it were, and I downed half a bottle of that gin in one sitting. That was my first ever real experience of drinking alcohol, and as a result, I was very sick throughout the course of the night. But obviously, it didn't put me off drinking in the future, no, for sure. So that's where it started, I would say.
So it's actually you were drinking to dull some ache deep inside.
I was drinking to fill a void. I was drinking to fill an emptiness, because it wasn't just drink that I tried. From a very early age, I tried everything on the outside. I used to throw things into what I call this big hole, this big void, like relationships, like a new job, like earning more money. If I set all these expectations of myself, and if I achieved them, I thought to myself, well, that's all I need, that will be. But unfortunately, it didn't work like that. The more I looked on the outside for my problem, for the solutions to my problems, the bigger the hole seemed to get. And before too long, it was just too overwhelming. And that's probably around that time, 26, 27, 28, when I did find alcohol was the only thing on a very temporary basis that took that pain away, that took that feeling and emotion, which I tried so hard in so many more conventional means to get rid of. That was the only thing I could ever truly rely on. Don't you quickly want to take us through your sort of process and the rehab, etc.? Yeah, no, for sure. My process was I hit my what we call rock bottom on the 27th of September 2014 in Plettenberg Bay. My ex-wife and 2 kids were in the vicinity. I'd moved to the region very briefly before. I ended up going on a 3-day drinking binge after making so many, by then, empty promises about me sobering up and behaving myself. Got myself into an awful situation, and it just got to a point where I had to make a decision on whether my life was worth going on with on that day. Fortunately, I had some wonderful people around me who escorted me and got me into rehabilitation, a facility in Plettenberg Bay called Twin Rivers. And my journey there, from looking for everything on the outside, started with me turning inside and accepting responsibility for my feelings and the way that I was. It's very hard in a very brief sort of interview like this to explain the various things that I learnt, which we can talk about in more detail in the print side of things, but suffice to say there were some crucial things that I needed to do in those early stages to start my recovery journey, none more greater than accepting that I had a drinking and drug problem, and with that acceptance I was able to build.
But surely you knew that.
Do you know what?
Without going into rehab.
It's amazing. I suffer from depression as well, so it's the only disease in the world that convinces you that you're not sick. The whole world around you can see it, except for yourself, and you'll see that repeated across the board. It really is insane and ridiculous when you say it like that. Yeah, but I didn't. I thought I was depressed. I thought I suffered from depression. It was a lot easier to sell that as to being the reason why I drank than the fact that I had a drinking problem, as it transpires.
But surely, I mean, I've got a few alcoholics in my own family as well, and they do have that. You see that guilt afterwards, so that just the fact that they feel guilty must surely show you that they know they've got a problem.
Yeah, the guilt. If they're showing guilt, then for me, if I had to be in a situation where I had to show
not necessarily
guilt,
apologising.
no. But you can sense it around them. The heads goes down, and they've overstepped the line, and they know that people are talking about them. Yeah, no, I didn't necessarily see that, because I would invariably end up blaming everyone around me for why I drank so much. It wasn't because of me. So no, I knew I drank too much, but I thought it was because I was depressed. I thought it was because I suffered from a mental health illness, which I do as well. But they're two separate illnesses, addiction and depression. So
they don't necessarily go hand in hand.
I actually went into the rehab centre trying to protect my drinking by saying I suffered from depression. If you sort my depression out, I'll be able to control my drinking, which was never going to be the case, because it was the two weren't affiliated, they weren't associated. They played beautifully together. They dovetailed. When I was depressed, I drank, and when I drank, I got depressed. It was just an ongoing cycle of chaos. But understanding the differences between the two was very important. There really is no greater therapeutic value than one addict speaking to another.
Experience.
It's the experience, it's the understanding, it's the empathy.
Do you still crave a drink every day of your life?
No.
Not anymore.
Just for today, I don't. And I know that just for today, I won't. I get in when on a hot day like this today, and I see people, and I'll go back to Plet, and people will be sat outside having a beer. There's a part of me that goes, oh, that would be nice. A nice cob. Why can't you just control it? Why can't you just have one or two? But we have a technique in recovery of many that we have, which is called playing the movie out. So what I do is I see that cold beer, I think, oh, I have this craving. Not even a craving, it's a wish that I could have that. But then my mind goes, okay, you have that, and then what happens? Where does it go? Where does it take you? You play the DVD right to the end, and it never ends well. So whilst that first beer might be great, the rest of the story isn't so. It's certainly not worth the one beer. So we're able to sort of work through psychological methods and coping mechanisms to help with exactly those things, but it's still there. It's still very much there, and I have to work hard to make sure that it stays where it is, in a safe place. Still part of me, but not controlling me.
I've been speaking to Andrew Sullivan, and yes, go and read the story online, go and see print, go to his blog, A Journey Without Substance, and you can also buy his book, A Year Without Substance.